Have you ever looked at someone who's better than you at something and felt your chest tighten just a little? On the outside, you still smile, still drop a line like, "Wow, that's amazing, congrats." But somewhere in the middle of your chest, a tiny empty space opens up. Not big enough to call it jealousy, but sharp enough to make you feel a little tired, a little deflated, like you've been running and suddenly miss a breath. Tonight, I want to sit next to you and walk right into that hard-to-name emotional space. The space where you genuinely admire someone, but you're also afraid that one day you might turn into an uglier version of yourself, full of envy, full of comparison, full of insecurity. Imagine a very simple scene. You're lying in bed, the room is dark, and the only light comes from your phone screen reflecting on the ceiling. Your finger swipes past a photo, an old friend, or someone in the same field as you, who just achieved something you once dreamed about, once wrote on your checklist, once imagined you would be the first one to reach. It could be they're posting a photo of their YouTube silver play button. They've just announced they landed the job you once applied for. They're checking in at a place that's been sitting in your wish list for so long. Or simply a light little caption, "Finally did what I've always wanted," in that exact moment. A few micro feelings brush past you, a tiny breathless pause, like someone just hit pause on your heartbeat for 1 second, a small sensation as if you're standing still while everyone else is walking faster. A smile automatically appears on your face, but if you look closely, beneath your eyelids there's a thin layer of exhaustion, accompanied by a very small question, "And what about me?" No one ever taught you how to handle that feeling. People just say, "Don't be jealous, it's ugly." Instead of being jealous, go work harder. They worked for it, they deserve it. What's the point of being jealous? But very few people sit down, put the phone aside, and ask you a gentle question. What is actually underneath that little sting? Welcome to Lucid Dream, Sleep, and Science Stories. This is another night of Marcus Aurelius nights, the nights where we don't try to look strong, don't force ourselves to be fine. We just sit still, breathe slower, and look a little more clearly at what's happening inside. Tonight, we'll walk together through a very fragile emotional territory. Those moments when you admire someone, but you're afraid you'll turn into a jealous person. How do you still genuinely say, "I'm happy for you," without having to swallow a lump stuck in your throat? Still see their journey as a source of inspiration, without unconsciously turning it into a measuring stick to push yourself down. Still admire someone else's light without dimming your own. In Stoicism, they don't pretend these feelings don't exist. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all had to face comparison, reputation, achievement, the kind of things that easily pull a person into envy when you see others moving faster, higher, farther. Seneca has a very famous line, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." With jealousy, this becomes even truer. Often, the pain doesn't lie in someone else's success, but in the story you tell yourself about it. Why can they do it and I can't? I must be useless. Maybe I was born slower than everyone else. That story, if it's never recognized, will slowly corrode you bit by bit, not because others are better than you, but because you believe that they're better Maybe we can start with a small truth. Every time we hear that someone has leveled up, got a raise, won a scholarship, hit monetization on their channel, landed a more stable job, most of us don't feel just one single emotion. It's not simply happy or sad. Usually, it's a very strange blend, a bit of pride, like wow, someone I know is really crushing it. A bit of hope, like maybe one day it'll be my turn. And a very thin layer of a question we're shy to say out loud. So, what about me? If things stopped there, it would probably be simple. But usually, right after the question, what about me, comes a whole chain of automatic conclusions that our mind quietly adds in. Must be because I'm not as good. Guess I didn't work hard enough. Maybe I just don't have what it takes, like they do. And slowly, that first little sting starts to get labeled. I'm probably jealous. I'm probably a bad person. When in reality, that's not really the root of it. If you look a little more closely, jealousy often doesn't come from you being mean-spirited, but from a very old feeling inside. I'm not enough, not good enough, not fast enough, not hardworking enough, not special enough, as if someone else's success is a magnified mirror, reflecting all the places where you feel you're lacking. Try to recall the most recent time this happened. Someone shared big good news with you. In that exact moment, before you could even think, did a tiny, very quick sentence flash through your mind. I wish that were me, or I wish I could have that too. Before that thought even gets a full breath, another voice jumps in to block it. Don't think like that, that's ugly. Being jealous is really bad. And so you start pushing it down. But feelings that are pushed down don't disappear. They just change shape. If you sit quietly for a bit, you'll see jealousy often has layers. It's not as simple as I don't want you to succeed. Many times, it's more like a clumsy disguise for the sentence, I'm scared. The first layer, very common, is the fear of being left behind. Imagine two people starting from the same point. You studied in the same class, started making content around the same time, launched your YouTube channels together, shared a small dream that looked pretty similar. One day, you look up, and it seems like the other person has already gone a few miles further. They've got some solid numbers, subscribers, income, projects, opportunities, and you're still in that phase of building while figuring things out. The feeling in that moment, if we give it a respectful name, is not, I hate them because they're good. It's more like, I'm scared that if they keep going this far ahead, the distance between us will get so big, I won't even have a reason to stay in this race anymore. It's like going for a run with a friend. At first, you're side by side. Gradually, they start to pick up speed. The gap widens. You don't actually want them to slow down. But with every extra meter they go forward, a little piece of your motivation falls behind. The fear of being left behind is a very human thing. There's nothing inherently bad about it. It's just that no one ever taught us to see it as fear. They just slapped the word jealousy on it. The second layer of jealousy is social pressure. We don't just compare ourselves with one specific person. We also compare ourselves with, at this age, I should already be like this. In this career, I should have reached that level. After this many years of working, at the very least I should have. There are these casual phrases you might have heard. When I was their age, I was still just kids. These days are already doing X by 25. At this age, and you're still. Those sentences stay in your head like an invisible ruler. Every time someone succeeds, the ruler automatically pops out and gets laid across your life to measure it. You don't just see, my friend achieved something beautiful. You also hear a silent line attached to it, and I'm already running late. So the feeling is no longer just happiness or sadness for someone else. It's also a sharp little pain from feeling behind schedule, late in age, late in milestones, late on some timeline that you never really agreed to, and don't even know who set in the first place. In that situation, jealousy becomes a reflection of an invisible pressure, the pressure to keep up with others, to keep up with your family's expectations, to keep up with society's comparisons. The third layer, more subtle and harder to notice, is unconscious comparison. Every day, you scroll past dozens of photos, hear dozens of success stories, see a whole lineup of other people's life highlights. Your brain, whether you like it or not, is quietly recording. Everyone around me is doing something. Meanwhile, most of your own time is spent in very ordinary moments, sitting at work, cooking, cleaning your room, scrolling for a bit, and then going back to unfinished tasks. What ends up happening is, you take everyone else's brightest moment and compare it to your own unfinished ordinary days. You compare their finished line photos to the stage, where you're still tying your shoelaces. You compare their polished chapter 10 to your messy draft of chapter 2, and then you decide, I've lost. A very heavy conclusion based on a very skewed comparison. Stoicism would call this a kind of mental illusion, Seneca said. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. With comparison, this line is almost perfectly accurate, because we don't hurt from the fact that they're good. We hurt from the story we add on top. If they're that good, then I must be useless. Reality is, they have their success. You have your journey. The pain is all the extra meanings you add around that, circling the sentence, I'm not enough. The important thing is, once you understand these three layers, the fear of being left behind, the weight of social pressure, and unconscious comparison, you'll be less quick to judge yourself. Instead of saying, I'm such a jealous person, I'm so awful, you might try changing it to, it seems like there's some kind of fear inside me that hasn't been heard yet. Just changing the way you name it softens the feeling a little. You can try replaying that earlier scene in your mind. You're lying there, the phone light glowing on the ceiling, and someone else's good news appears. This time, instead of immediately telling yourself, don't be jealous, that's ugly, you try to breathe a bit slower and ask gently, out of these three, what am I more afraid of right now? Am I afraid of being left behind, afraid that one day we won't share the same wavelength anymore? Am I afraid of not keeping up with my family's and society's expectations? Or am I afraid because I keep staring at their highlights and using them to beat myself up while forgetting what I've already done? You don't need a perfectly clear answer. Just having the courage to look is already a big step. Because, for the Stoics, the real issue isn't do you have this feeling or not. It's, are you willing to look at it honestly, or do you cover it up and let it drag you into worse directions? They don't teach us to run away. They teach us to observe. If you look closely, jealousy always walks hand in hand with expectation. Expectations about what you should already have achieved. Expectations about where you should already be by now. Expectations about how life should have been more fair to you. When those expectations don't line up with reality, then every time you see someone else reach what you wanted, that old scratch inside you gets touched again, Seneca said. We suffer more from expectation than from reality. Often, we don't hurt because of someone else's success, but because of all the unhealed expectations we're still carrying inside. If tonight you lie still and quietly ask yourself, if I weren't carrying this many expectations on my back, would someone else's success still hurt this much? The answer might not come right away, but even that question is enough to gently loosen a little corner in your chest. The only thing I really want you to acknowledge is this: you are not a bad person just because your heart flinches for a moment when someone else succeeds. You're simply a human being trying to understand this feeling of I'm not enough in a world that constantly. A moment ago, we talked a lot about the fear of not being enough, but there's something else that's just as important behind many episodes of jealousy. There's a very beautiful layer of emotion we rarely dare to admit. Admiration. Try to recall a small moment. You watch a video where someone speaks really well. Their voice is steady, their gaze calm. Their words touch exactly the thing you've been thinking about for so long, but never managed to say. For a few seconds, you genuinely feel, it's beautiful, beautiful in the sense of, wow, how can someone do that? That is admiration. A very pure beam of light. It doesn't say, I'm terrible, why can't I do what they do? It simply says, this is good. This is beautiful. This is something worth respecting. It's just that, usually, we don't let that light stand on its own for long. We quickly mix into it all kinds of other feelings: comparison, self-criticism, panic, fear of being left behind, fear of being a bad person. And so admiration gets blurred, and all that's left is a heavy knot we call jealousy. If we separate things clearly, admiration and envy differ at one tiny point, but it's enough to bend the entire direction of the heart. Admiration says, you have something very beautiful, and I respect that. Envy says, you have something very beautiful, and I can't stand watching you have it. Admiration is the recognition of value. Envy is the wish for that value to disappear from the other person, or at least to not be higher than ours. In admiration, you can look at someone incredibly skilled and feel your own heart expand. It's wonderful that someone like this exists in the world. In envy, your heart tightens. It's so uncomfortable that someone like this exists. Before me, instead of me, more than me. One side opens, the other side constricts. The Stoics don't deny envy. They just remind us not to rush into believing that the first emotion is the final story. Marcus Aurelius has a line: if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. It's not someone else's success that hurts you. It's the way you judge it, the way you interpret what it means about you. It's the same event. Your friend turns on monetization on YouTube. One part of you says, I admire that. Another part says, so that means I've lost. The first feeling is a beam of light. The second is the shadow you built yourself. If you only stare at the shadow, you'll think the whole room has gone dark. But in reality, the light never left. There's a very simple sentence people often say. It sounds obvious at first, but if you truly live with it, your heart becomes much lighter. Another's success is not your failure. Someone else's success does not automatically become your defeat. They may move quickly, but that doesn't instantly define you as standing still. They may reach a beautiful milestone, but that doesn't erase the value of your quiet steps. The feeling of I've lost often doesn't come from reality, but from turning everyone else's success into a mirror and only using it to reflect the parts of yourself you haven't finished yet. If you shift the angle, then a part of them can become a reminder. There are seeds like that in me too. The timeline is just different. The expression is different. The rhythm is different. Try imagining this scene. You're sitting on a night bus, streetlights passing in soft yellow patches across the window. A friend texts you, hey, I got in. You read it, your heart flinches a bit, but then, instead of forcing yourself to be 100% happy straight away, you allow two feelings to exist at the same time. I'm genuinely happy for them. I'm genuinely sad for myself, too. Then you add one more layer. I admire how they stayed consistent until they got here. Just adding the word admire, not to cover up the sadness, but to acknowledge the truth that this person in front of you really has done something admirable in that moment. You don't need to become a saint. You just have to not choke admiration before it gets a chance to breathe. Admiration doesn't ask you to shrink. On the contrary, it opens a possibility to see beauty out there, while still staying gentle with yourself, to recognize how good someone else is, without using their good to rewrite your own story as useless, to look at another light, without dimming your own, just because you're afraid that, side by side, the two lights will be compared. There's a very simple way to practice separating these two. Next time you see someone do something that makes your heart sting, try quietly saying 3 layered sentences to yourself. I truly admire this about them, and name it clearly: their persistence, their voice, their kindness, the way they keep their word, or anything else. The sting I feel inside isn't because of them. It's because there's something in me I'm not satisfied with yet. Both of these things can be true at the same time. The first sentence protects the purity of admiration. The second takes responsibility for your part, instead of putting it on them. The third allows your heart not to pick a side, not to be forced into either perfectly saintly or a bad, jealous person. In the Stoic world, your worth doesn't rise and fall with someone else's success graph. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If every time you see someone succeed, you choose to think, that means I've failed, then slowly, the world inside your head will become very small and cramped. But if each time you try changing the story to, this is a beautiful example of someone living up to their potential, and me, I'm also on my way to living up to mine, then every success out there turns into a doorway, not a wall. You might ask, but how do I admire someone without losing my own sense of worth? Part of the answer lies here, knowing that your path and theirs are 2 different lines. You can learn from their mindset, their persistence, their discipline, their refusal to give up, but you don't need to copy their exact results. You don't need to live their exact life. You don't need to turn yourself into a duplicate. Admiration says, you are shining on your path. Your light helps me see my own path more clearly. Envy says, I want to turn your light off, or at least, I want my light to be exactly as bright as yours, and if it's not, I can't accept it. One side is learning, the other side is wrestling. If tonight your chest feels a little heavy, whenever you think of that one person you're happy for and also scared of and also hurt about, you can try a very gentle exercise. Right there in bed, close your eyes, say their name in your mind, then silently write 3 lines in your thoughts. The thing I admire in them is, the thing I feel sad about for myself is, the thing I still appreciate in myself, even if I haven't reached where they are, is. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be right, it just has to be true. When you let admiration stand on its own, it stops being dragged down by your fear of being a bad person. And when you give your sadness a place to exist, it doesn't have to sharpen itself into thorns. Slowly, you'll start to notice something strange but gentle. You can look at someone shining, and instead of asking, why not me? You begin to ask, in that light, what is touching the better version of me? That question, if you follow it long enough, will lead you to a very important place that we're about to touch. A place where jealousy is no longer a sentence, but a signal, a small compass pointing toward what you truly long for. But before we go there, you can take one deeper breath, let any face that just floated through your mind settle again, and whisper, I'm allowed to admire someone else without turning myself into the loser in that story. Earlier, we walked through something pretty important, that underneath many layers of jealousy, there's actually a small beam of light called admiration. Now, let's take one more step, instead of stopping at, oh, so maybe I'm not as bad as I thought, let's try something else. What if that sharp little feeling is actually trying to tell you something about yourself? If you pay attention, you'll notice jealousy doesn't show up for every successful person. Not everyone who's rich makes your chest tighten. Not everyone who's famous makes you feel left out. There are people who can climb as high as they want, and all you feel is good for them, and that's it. But with certain other people, just one small step forward from them is enough to make something inside you stir. What does that mean? It means that somewhere inside, their journey is touching a very specific place in you, a place you might once have wanted to walk toward to, but for some reason, you stopped halfway. For example, you don't feel jealous of doctors. You don't feel jealous of architects. You don't feel jealous of people traveling the world, but you do feel that sting when you see someone in the same field as you upload a new video. Even if their views aren't huge yet, you can tell just by looking. They're showing up consistently, they're steady, they're not quitting. Or a very ordinary friend, not a superstar, but they're willing to self-study, willing to wake up early, willing to sit with their passion for one more hour every day. When you see them, you feel both warm and sore inside. Warm, because it's so nice to see someone taking their passion seriously. Sore, because I once promised myself I'd do the same, and I dropped it halfway. Here, jealousy isn't really saying, I hate them. It's whispering something else, very softly. There's a part of me that wants this too. I just haven't dared to claim it. The Stoics don't tell you to run away from these signals. They teach you to sit with them and look straight at them, as if you were sitting in front of a map. Every time your heart aches at someone's success, see it as a tiny X mark someone has drawn on the map inside you. It's not bad character, it's a hint. Hey, maybe this direction matters to you. To read these X marks, you can use 3 very simple questions as a little exercise for tonight. The first question, what is it about them that hits me the most? Not success in general, but a very specific detail. Is it the number? Is it the income? Is it the recognition? Or is it the way they keep going? The way they keep their promises to themselves? The way they dared to start from zero without needing anyone's approval? Try stepping back a bit and zooming in on the detail. You might realize you're not really jealous of the result. You're touched by their essence. Sometimes, what you admire is not the fact that they have a lot of money, but the sense of freedom that money gives them. Not that they have a lot of views, but that feeling of being heard, of living in alignment with their own voice. Not just the picture of them checking in somewhere, but the courage it took to walk out of their comfort zone. When you name it correctly, the map starts to come into focus. Oh, so what I actually long for is freedom, courage, persistence, not just the surface level stuff. The second question, if I removed jealousy from the equation, what would my true feeling be? Imagine you could temporarily put away all the voices that criticize you. No more, you're a bad person. No more, you've already lost. No more, you're full of envy. If you take all those judgments away, what's left? It might be sadness, a very gentle kind of sadness. Sad because I once dreamed of this too, but I didn't keep my promise to myself. Sad because I've procrastinated for too long. Sad because I know I can do better than this, and I still haven't. That sadness, in Stoicism, is not the enemy. It's a form of clean pain. Clean, because it doesn't attack anyone, doesn't badmouth anyone, doesn't shoot arrows outward. It's just a touch of truth. There is a gap between the life I'm living and the life I truly want to live. If you let that sadness sit there for a while, without crushing it, without quickly covering it with jokes or another scroll, it can become a very quiet kind of motivation, instead of turning into jealousy. Because envy often begins when clean pain goes unrecognized. It has to put on armor, has to act like I'm angry at them, so it doesn't have to look directly that I'm breaking my own promises? The third question, what does this tell me about who I want to become? This is the most important one. Every time your heart sinks because of someone, instead of stopping at, why can't I be like them? Try shifting to, what is this revealing about the person I long to become? For example, you're jealous of a friend who keeps creating content every day. That might be a sign that the version of you that you want to become is someone who respects their own promises. You want to look in the mirror and see someone who doesn't give up on themselves, or you feel a sting seeing someone choose their own path, not living by their family's expectations. That might be a sign that the version of you that you thirst for is someone who dares to live true to their desires, even if they're misunderstood, even if the path is longer at that point. Jealousy is no longer saying, I hate you. It's more like a little sticky note on your heart. Hey, you want a piece of this life too? You just haven't admitted it yet. Epictetus has a beautiful line. First, say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do before you act. Be honest with yourself about who do I want to become. You don't need a 10-year life plan. You just need to stop lying to yourself. If every time you see someone doing something, your heart trembles, but you keep pretending, nah, I don't care about that, then you're cutting the cord between you and your own dreams. Stoicism doesn't tell you that you must have huge ambitions, but it is very clear about this. If you want something, don't pretend you don't, because the real source of pain is often the distance between I want and I'm pretending I don't want, not the fact that others are succeeding. Tonight, if you're still awake, you can try a very gentle exercise. Think of one specific person whose good news always makes you feel both happy and sore. Then, without saying anything out loud, just answer in your mind. One question at a time. What is it about them that hits me the most? Their consistency, their grit, their calm, their creativity. If I drop all self-judgment, what is my real feeling? Sad because I haven't started. Regret because I quit halfway. Fear because I don't know where to go from here. What does this tell me about who I want to become? What kind of person do I want to be? Someone who keeps promises to themselves. Someone who dares to choose their own path. Someone who lives deeply and meaningfully, not just safely. You don't have to write anything down. You don't have to share it with anyone. You just have to be honest with yourself. You'll start to see that slowly, jealousy becomes less sharp. It's no longer a thorn pointed at someone else, but more like a tiny needle gently tapping you, reminding you, hey, there's still a dream in you that hasn't been given a name. And one last thing, small, but I want to say it clearly. You don't have to turn every trace of jealousy into instant motivation. You don't have to turn every pang into a slogan like I must work harder. Sometimes the first step is simply, oh, so I do want that, actually. Just that alone is enough to change the atmosphere inside you, because the moment you admit, I want this too, you are no longer just the person standing outside, looking in. You've already set one very soft foot onto your own path. As for how to keep walking, how to use admiration as a source of fuel instead of as a wound, we'll move through that more slowly in the next part. For now, if you feel your heartbeat has slowed a little, your breath has gone a bit deeper, you can place your hand over your chest, smile just a little, and whisper inside, maybe I'm not just jealous. Maybe I'm being reminded of who I want to become. By now, you can probably see it. That sharp little feeling in your chest is not just about being a bad person, or not. It reaches deeper places, who you want to become, what you once promised yourself, and how far you've really come on that path. But there's another trap we're very likely to fall into, especially in the age of social media: the trap of comparison. Honestly, comparison is instinct. The human brain is built to look around and ask, what are other people doing? Where are they at? How are they living now? In the past, this was still manageable because you were only comparing yourself to a small circle around you: neighbors, classmates, a few relatives. Now you open your phone and you can compare yourself to the entire world. People your age, people younger than you, people in the same field, people in totally different fields, people burning themselves out, people just showing the highlight reels. So the fact that you compare is not your fault. It's a natural reflex of the brain, especially when it's being flooded with images of success, achievements, milestones, 24/7. But there is one place where you can train something: not stop comparing, but choose what you compare and how you compare. That part is a skill. One of the things that hurts us most is not the act of comparing itself, but the content of the comparison. We often unconsciously do something very unfair to ourselves. We take someone else's fully polished result and put it next to our own unfinished draft. You're at chapter 2, and you're comparing yourself to their chapter 10. You've just uploaded a few videos, and you compare yourself to a channel that's been running for 3 or 4 years. You've only been practicing a new habit for a week, and you compare yourself to someone who's been living that discipline for several years. Then you conclude, I lost. How could you not lose when the comparison was crooked from the very beginning? Imagine this: a little kid is just learning how to write. Their hand still shakes, the letters are wobbly and uneven. Every day, they open a printed book, look at those beautiful, straight lines of text, and tell themselves, my writing is so ugly. I'm so bad at this. I have no talent. When in reality, all that's happening is, on one side, you have handwriting that's been practiced for over 10 years, and on the other side, it's the 5th day of holding a pencil. But we adults do the exact same thing to ourselves all the time. Whenever we see someone who's walked a beautiful stretch of their life, we don't ask, how long have they been walking? Where am I in my own process? Is this milestone even the same type as my journey? We just jump straight to, how come they get to be like that, and I don't? The Stoics call this kind of thing illusions of thought. We don't suffer from the facts. We suffer from the way we retell those facts in our heads. Marcus Aurelius has a very gentle line I really like. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Very few external things actually decide your happiness. Most of it lies in how you think about everything. It's the same with comparison. Someone else's success is just a piece of data. Whether that data turns into motivation or a haunting weight depends a lot on what you compare and how you read it. There are 2 types of comparison that are especially exhausting. First, comparing someone else's finished result with your own work in progress. Second, comparing your real, everyday life with someone else's filtered highlight reel. Both are unfair. Both leave you feeling like you're always behind, always lacking, always lesser. Try to recall a recent moment when you got hit by this. Maybe you were scrolling and saw someone your age posting pictures of a nice office, solid salary, healthy body, everything looking perfectly on track, while you are sitting in your room, in a t-shirt, messy hair, staring at a to-do list full of unfinished tasks. A project that still hasn't picked up views, money not yet stable, sleep not yet enough. If you're not aware, your brain will auto-generate, wow, they're my age, and already, and me, The story ends with a sigh. But if you pause for 5 seconds and ask a few extra questions, things might change. What exactly am I comparing to what? Am I looking at a complete picture or just a single moment? Do they even have the same goals as me? The same path as me? The same circumstances as me? Those questions, even before you answer them, already soften the sting of the comparison. There's another layer, just as heavy, comparing yourself to society's timeline. Those phrases like, "At this age, you should already," "When I was your age, I had already," or those invisible checklists, 25, stable job, 27 married, 30 house, X age, car. You don't necessarily believe those rules, but they still slip into your head, so every time you see someone on schedule, you feel like you're offbeat. You're not only jealous of them, you're also jealous of the version of you that should have been. If you let those measuring sticks stay too long, then any success someone else has can turn into evidence for you to sentence yourself, "I'm late. I messed up my life," when in reality, the Stoics remind us again and again, everyone has their own rhythm, their own circumstances, their own exam paper in life. You wouldn't grade a math student using a literature test, would you? Yet, with ourselves, we often take someone else's test and use it to grade our own life. So, if comparison is instinct, what do we do with it? The answer is not to force ourselves to never compare again. The more you try not to think about something, the louder your brain makes it. Instead, you can learn to use comparison as a tool. For example, whenever your mind throws out the line, "Why not me?" you don't have to shove it down. You just gently turn it a little. What can I learn from them? What can I pick up from this person for my own journey? From "why not me" to "what can I gather from this for myself?" It sounds small, but for the mind, it's a huge shift. One question pulls you into the role of a victim. The other brings you back into the role of a learner. Let's try a concrete example. You see a YouTube channel hit monetization. Your brain goes, "Why not me?" If you leave that question as is, it's easy to slide into, "Because I'm bad at this," "Because I'm unlucky," "Because I'm just not meant for this." But if you switch to, "What can I learn from them?" you start looking differently. How consistently do they upload? Is their content similar to mine or different? How long have they been showing up? Do they iterate, fix mistakes, try new formats? Slowly, your focus shifts from result to process. Now, comparison is no longer a weapon you turn on yourself, but a way of unpacking. Oh, so it turns out that if someone keeps going like this for 3 months, 6 months, a year, there's a pretty good chance they'll move forward. Suddenly, someone else's success turns into a reference map instead of a judging mirror. The Stoics don't forbid you from looking at others. They just remind you not to forget to look back at yourself. Afterwards, you can try a small exercise. Every time someone's success makes your chest ache, step 1, let yourself admit, "Okay, I feel a little left behind right now." Step 2, ask, "What exactly am I comparing here? Their result versus my process. Their highlight versus my ordinary day. Their timeline versus the timeline society planted in my head." Step 3, end the thought with, "What can I learn from them if I see them only as an example, not as a verdict?" Maybe you'll learn their consistency. Maybe you'll learn their willingness to go slow. Maybe you'll learn how they didn't quit when their views were low. And sometimes you might realize, actually, the life I want isn't like theirs at all. I'm not jealous because I want their life. I'm jealous because I've been forgetting my own path. Even just realizing that is already a big step at the end of the day. Stoicism always circles back to one point: what you can control and what you can't. You can't control how fast others move, what opportunities they get, how many likes, how much money, how much praise they receive. You can only control what you choose to think about those things, and whether you use them as a knife or as a light. A knife to cut into yourself, a light to illuminate the road ahead. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. There are very few things outside that truly need to change. Most of the work lies in how you look, how you compare, how you tell the story inside your own head tonight." If you're still listening up to this point, there's a very strange moment you've probably experienced before, when that person shares their good news with you. Your heart really does open. You smile, and this time the smile isn't fake at all. You type, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you," or "I'm so happy for you," really, and you mean it. You know they deserve it. You've seen all the days they were exhausted, pushing through, wanting to quit, but still hanging on. You're happy as if it were your win too. But then, when the conversation ends, when the screen goes dark, when you're lying alone in your room, another feeling slowly surfaces, not crashing in, not dramatic, just a thin line running across your chest. Something a little raw, a little empty, a little tender, in a way that's hard to name. You don't want them to lose what they just gained. You don't want to drag them down. You don't have any bad thoughts toward them. You just hurt a little. That's the emotional space we often avoid. But in truth, it's actually very beautiful. In psychology, people often distinguish between two types of pain: clean pain and dirty pain. It sounds academic, but put simply, clean pain is a very pure kind of sadness or hurt. It's simply, I'm hurting because of something I care about. It doesn't attack anyone, doesn't belittle anyone, doesn't smear anyone. It's just a tear falling for something that once mattered to you. Dirty pain is clean pain that has been mixed with layers of overthinking, self-judgment, and self-abuse. It's when you start wrapping your sadness in toxic stories. It's because you're useless, you're nothing, you don't deserve anything good. Same original emotion, but one side allows you to be sad in a gentle, human way, while the other turns that sadness into a weapon that stabs you, and sometimes stabs other people, too. Back to that moment when you're genuinely happy for someone and still hurting. The clean pain here might be very simple. I care about my own version of me who once had that same dream and hasn't reached it yet. That's a very clear, very tender sadness. Sad because you love, because you value, because you see the distance between where you are and what you once wanted. It doesn't say, they don't deserve this. It doesn't say, I wish they'd fail. It just says, I wish I could get there too. If it stopped there, this pain would be something quite beautiful, like standing under fireworks and suddenly remembering that once, long ago, you wanted to be the one launching them. You look up at the sky, and at the same time, you feel a dream inside you that you haven't touched yet. Dirty pain begins when clean pain isn't allowed, when you feel that little sting. Instead of taking a deeper breath and telling yourself, yeah, it's normal to feel a bit sad, you immediately switch into judgment mode. What's wrong with you? Are you jealous, or what? You're such a bad person. Why can't you just be happy for them completely? Each of those scolding thoughts is like pouring another layer of sand over that pure, original sadness. After a while, you can't see the beautiful core of the feeling anymore. All that's left is a heavy lump called, I'm a terrible person. And from there, everything inside you starts to twist. You start avoiding their stories. you start talking to them less. You start pretending you don't care, not because you hate them, but because every time you see them, that guilt gets triggered again. See, you're jealous again. That's the moment when clean pain has been turned into dirty pain. The Stoics never say you should become numb to other people's success. They simply remind you, don't add extra judgment on top of the original feeling. A feeling is just a feeling. It comes, it goes. It's like a wave. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself not to add unnecessary layers of meaning onto events. Don't tell yourself stories that make the pain worse than the reality. The original truth is just, my friend achieved something. I'm happy for them. And I'm also a little sad for myself. That's clean. That's human. If you can just let that truth exist without painting it all black, it can become a very gentle kind of pain, a beautiful pain. It reminds you that you still know how to dream, still know how to be moved by what's worthy, and that you're still honest enough not to pretend, oh, I don't want anything anyway. The problem is, we grew up in an environment that often teaches us to deny our feelings. I thought I was over it, but I'm not. Realizing that is already a quiet kind of maturity. So what does it look like to turn clean pain into growth in everyday life? It's not dramatic. It doesn't look like one of those from zero to hero, montages. It's usually very small and honestly, a bit sleepy. For example, tonight, instead of scrolling until 2 a.m., you turn off your phone 30 minutes earlier, open that unfinished file, and write a few more lines, not because I must succeed no matter what, but because the sadness you felt when your friend reached their goal reminded you that you also have something you want to care for. Or you start keeping one tiny promise to yourself every day. I'll give our dream just 20 minutes. No posting, no showing off. No one else has to know. Just one small act to prove to yourself that painful twinge I felt didn't go to waste. Clean pain is transformed when it leads to a concrete step, no matter how small, instead of just turning into another long self-criticism session. And just as important, don't rush to turn every sadness into a KPI some nights. It's enough just to let yourself be sad for a bit, without doing anything about it. Just lie there, breathe steadily, and let that feeling of I'm a little left behind wash through you like a wave. Don't hold it back. Don't erase it. Don't add insults on top. The Stoics don't teach us to become emotion-optimizing machines. They simply suggest, when a difficult state shows up, don't let it control you, but don't pretend it doesn't exist either. Observe it, recognize it, then choose your response. Sometimes, the kindest choice is simply, tonight, I'll allow myself to hurt a little. I'll decide tomorrow, and when tomorrow comes, if you still feel that you want it, you take one small step toward whatever made you ache. If right now your heart feels a little heavy, when you think of a certain person, a certain milestone, a dream you once shared but they reached first, you can try something very gentle. Place your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and whisper, "Thank you for showing me that I still want this." That's how you say thank you to your own pain. It's no longer the enemy, it's a signal, and one day, when you look back, you might see that those nights, when you lay there listening to news of someone else's success, with that soft, almost silent ache in your chest, were the nights that pulled you out of just getting through the days. From there, slowly, that beautiful pain leads you into a new territory, where you become more aware of your own journey and realize that they're not ahead, not behind, just walking on their path, and your path is still waiting for you to come back with all the dreams you thought you'd lost. but that were really just sleeping quietly inside your own heart. There's a very strange moment almost everyone has lived through. You see someone else moving faster than you, and a sentence pops up in your mind, sharp, painful, but sounding reasonable. They're ahead. I've been left behind. That line feels so familiar, you start to assume it must be the truth. But if you sit still for a bit, you'll notice something. It's just one way of telling the story, not reality itself. Let's try shifting the angle a little. When you say they're ahead, you're assuming that everyone is standing on the same racetrack, with the same starting line, the same goal, the same deadline. But is that actually true? Some people prioritize money. Some people prioritize free time. Some people prioritize peace. Some people prioritize experience. Some are willing to trade away their health to grind through a brutally intense season of life. Others are willing to move slower in exchange for enough sleep, enough food, and a mind that doesn't shatter. If the goals are different, the destinations are different, and the way of walking is different, how can ahead and behind be absolute? So that sentence, "they are ahead of me," is often just a thinking habit, not a fact. More accurately, it might be, they are on their path, and I am on mine. They're walking their road, you're walking yours. That's all, but I know, saying it is easy. The feeling of being left behind doesn't just come from a simple comparison. It's built from layers of pressure stacked on top of each other. If you break it down, you might see three of them very clearly. The first layer of pressure: time. Those lines like, "At your age, and you're still." "When I was your age, I had already." By this point in life, if you still haven't done anything serious, then those sentences are like invisible stickers stamped on your forehead, with pre-printed deadlines for each phase of your life. So every time you see someone on schedule, you instantly conclude, "I'm late." Late compared to whom? Late according to what timeline? No one can answer clearly, but the feeling of being late still feels very real. And yet, if you look back at your own road, you've had detours they never had. You've had periods where you had to stop to care for family, care for your health, or even care for the wounds inside. Those stretches don't show up on a CV, don't appear on a list of achievements, but they are still part of a life lived. If you keep forcing someone else's timeline onto a life built with different architecture, you'll feel late forever. But that late comes from you, not from life. The second layer of pressure: ability. You keep hearing things like, "They're just naturally talented. They were born with it." Slowly, you start believing you were born lacking something every time you see someone pull something off. Instead of thinking, "How did they train for that?" your brain auto-fires, "It's because I don't have what they have." This feeling is subtle. It doesn't always show up clearly, but it lives inside the way you talk to yourself. "I'm just not the type who's good at this. This isn't really my nature. My brain is too slow for things like that." Those sentences sound humble, but repeated enough times, they turn into a kind of spell you keep casting over your own life. Meanwhile, if you look more honestly, ability is also a curve. Not everyone explodes at the same time. Some people shoot up fast and then plateau. Some move slowly but steadily. Some wander around for a while and then suddenly see the path clearly. If you accept that you're in the still learning phase, watching someone else be skilled hurts less like a slap and more like a demo. "Oh, if I'm willing to train, I might be able to get somewhere near that too, in my own way." The third layer of pressure: being compared. It's not just you comparing yourself. Often the people around you do that job for you too. The neighbor's kid, your friend A, is already doing X, and you look at them they started from the same place as you. If you hear those lines long enough, every success someone else has turns into a reminder. You're losing. Sometimes you're not even jealous because you want what they have. You're jealous because you're exhausted from carrying that loser label people stuck on you. When you were young, in that kind of environment, it makes complete sense that your heart automatically tightens whenever you see someone doing better. Not because you're cruel, but because you're tired of constantly having to prove you're not a disappointment over and over and over again. If you put those three layers together, you can see that the sentence "they are ahead, I'm behind" is not so innocent anymore. It's not just an observation. It's a way of thinking that can slowly erode your self-worth day after day. The slightly comforting part is, if it's a way of thinking, it can be RELERNED, not overnight, but little by little. There's a small image I'd like to invite you to picture with me tonight. You're walking alone down a quiet road. It's not too late, but late enough that everything has slowed down. On both sides of the street, there's a row of yellow street lights. No two lights are shining exactly the same. Some are very bright, casting a big, wide pool of light over the sidewalk. Some are dimmer, just enough to see your steps. Some flicker now and then, like they're hesitating. Should I keep shining or not? If you look from one end of the road, you'll see they're not competing. They're just different lifespans, different wattages, different replacement dates. Their purpose is not to fight over who shines more, but simply this: as long as each light tries to do its small part, the road won't go completely dark. People are the same. Each person has their own pace, their own conditions, and their own stretch of road to illuminate. You don't need to shine in someone else's style. You just need not to switch yourself off just because someone else is shining brighter in their corner. Epictetus said something very direct, but also very gentle. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. It's like standing at one end of that night road, looking at the long line of lights, and instead of asking, "Why don't I shine like that one?" you ask, with where I am and what I have, what kind of light do I want to give off? Maybe it's the light of someone who moves slowly but steadily. Maybe it's the light of someone who does fewer things but goes deep. Maybe it's the light of someone who values quiet more than noise. Once you can put that into words, the whole ahead behind story starts to matter less, because the question is no longer, am I keeping up with them? It becomes, am I staying true to the kind of person I want to become? Being aware of your personal journey is not some distant philosophical concept. It's very close, very practical. It's hiding inside small decisions like, you choose to make one more video today, even knowing the views might not be high, because it fits the person you want to be, someone who doesn't abandon what they love. You choose to sleep enough, even when deadlines push, because you don't want to become someone who trades their health for numbers they might not even care about later. You choose to slow down with relationships that constantly make you feel less than, not because you're jealous, but because you want to protect enough mental space to stay calm for the long road. Each small choice, if repeated enough times, will define your journey more clearly than any achievement list ever could. Tonight, if the space around you is quiet, you can try a very simple exercise. Close your eyes and bring to mind the people you've been comparing yourself to lately. Then, instead of asking, how far ahead are they? Try asking, is their journey actually the same type as mine? The things they're willing to trade away, am I willing to trade those too? If I walked exactly the way they do, would that honestly be the life I want? Sometimes, just being honest enough to say no to a few paths that aren't really yours is enough to soften your hearts. It doesn't hurt as much when you see someone sprinting down that road because you know, I never actually wanted that destination in the first place. I just forgot my own road for a while. As you start treating your own timeline more kindly, in a very natural way, jealousy begins to soften too. Not because you never feel that sting again, but because every time it shows up, you have a new sentence to lean on. They are not ahead. They are on their path, and I am also on mine. From that place of acceptance, admiration can turn into motivation much more easily, a quiet kind of motivation, without forcing, without yanking you around, not demanding. At some point, if you're willing to sit still with your feelings long enough, you'll notice jealousy isn't as sharp as it was in the beginning. It still hurts, but it's no longer a knife. It feels more like a light tap. Hey, careful. There might be something important for you here. From that moment on, the question is no longer, how do I stop being jealous? It becomes, what am I going to do with this feeling now? That's where admiration can slowly start turning into motivation, a kind of clean motivation that doesn't burn you out, doesn't make you run yourself into the ground. Just to prove something to anyone, there are two very different kinds of motivation. One kind is dirty motivation. Watch me. I'll show all of you I can do it too. It sounds fiery, but underneath it is a fear that I'll be the loser forever. This kind of motivation usually travels with pressure, with strain, with the feeling that if you don't reach exactly what they have, you are a failure. It makes you jump up very quickly, do a lot, but burn out just as fast, because every time you're tired, your brain whispers, see, you're still behind them. The other kind is clean motivation. When I look at them, I remember I once wanted to take this seriously too. This motivation doesn't run on fear. It runs on desire, the desire to live in a way you can respect. It's still tiring, still hard, but your heart feels lighter. You're not walking while constantly looking sideways, checking, am I equal to them yet? You're paying more attention to the question, today, did I stay faithful to what I've chosen? Admiration, if you place it in the right spot, will nudge you toward this second kind of motivation. So how do you do that? One of the first keys is how you look at the people you admire. If you see them as opponents, your heart tightens. Everything they do easily gets interpreted as a threat. But if you see them as a mirror, you start to notice something very different. A mirror doesn't judge. A mirror just reflects. You look at their success, and instead of saying, they're better than me, you try asking, in this story, what part of them once existed in me, or is still sleeping in me? Maybe it's their consistency. Maybe it's their stubborn grit. Maybe it's the way they endured that phase when no one understood them. Maybe it's their kindness toward their audience, their clients, their coworkers. Those qualities are not their exclusive property. They're traits that every human being has in some raw form inside. The question is simply, am I willing to water them or not? When you look at someone as a mirror, the sentence in your head shifts very subtly from, I'm worse than they are, to, there is something in them that has existed in me too. I just need to wake it back up. The second thing, learn their mindset and process, not copy their results. A lot of jealousy is born because we keep staring at the final numbers, how much they earn, how many subs, how many views, how big the contract is. Meanwhile, if you just take one deep breath and step half a step back, you can start to be curious in a different way. What habits did they build to get there? When their views dropped or their energy crashed, what did they do to keep going? When did they start practicing that skill? And how many years did they give themselves permission to be bad before they became good? These questions move you from comparison mode into learning mode. You're no longer standing outside looking in and pinning the loser label on yourself. You walk closer to see the small bricks they've been laying down each day, and you realize there are plenty of things you are fully capable of training too. The habit of sitting down for 1 to 2 hours a day, the attitude of finish it first, then adjust, instead of sitting there imagining 100 scenarios, the ability to accept low views for a long stretch, without deleting everything and starting from zero again. If you're honest, you'll see those things aren't natural talent. They're repeated choices. Epictetus has a line, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Don't just talk about your philosophy, live it. When you look at someone you admire this way, you're no longer just analyzing them. You're quietly asking yourself, what is their philosophy of living? And to some extent, do I want to live that way too? If the answer is yes, you start picking up small pieces that fit you and bring them back to your own journey, instead of blindly chasing a copy. The third thing, take the energy, not the self-dissection. You know this feeling. You see someone do something you love, and suddenly you feel like sitting up. Not to outrun them, but because you feel there's still so much beauty left in this life to try. That's energy. Very clean, very gentle. Instead of looking at them and freezing, you look at them like you'd look at a small flame. Okay, the magic is still happening for someone out there. Why couldn't it happen for me too, if I'm willing to try again? Not everyone can access this feeling easily, because the mind has gotten used to using other people's success as a ruler, to slam on its own head. But you can practice. Next time someone makes your heart tremble, try pausing, placing a hand on your chest, and quietly asking, in their story, what's actually giving me energy? It might be just one sentence, one look, one decision, one level of seriousness. Gather it, store it like a small battery. Don't use their story as a whip. So all this doesn't stay just in your head. You can try a very simple, very late night exercise tonight. After you've turned off most of the lights and kept just a small lamp on your desk, take out a piece of paper or open a notes app on your phone. Write down the name of one person you both admire and feel a sting around. Then write down 3 things you genuinely admire about them, not vague things like rich, successful, famous, but specific things. I admire how they keep showing up even when no one is paying attention. I admire the way they talk to people, calm, not combative. I admire that they dared to start from zero in front of everyone. Then add one more line. Out of these 3, which one do I most want to grow in myself? Maybe you pick just one. Just one is enough. Then ask, if I want to grow this, what small thing could I do each day to move a little closer to it? It doesn't have to be big. It could be posting a video, even when it isn't perfect, sitting down with your project for 30 minutes, or as simple as stopping yourself from trash-talking yourself every time you slip into comparison. This exercise doesn't force you to transform overnight. It simply helps you connect admiration and action more clearly, so that every time your heart aches around someone, you don't stop at, wow, I'm so far below them, but can add, yeah, I'm behind. But there's a seed like that in me too. I'm going to start watering it today. One more small example, so you can picture it more clearly. Back then, when your friend hit monetization, the automatic line in your head was, I lost. From there, Everything you did was driven by that feeling of loser, working under heavy pressure, wondering when will it be my turn, wanting to delete your channel every time the views dipped. If you take that same situation and put it into a different mindset, the line could shift into, there's something in them that I used to have, that stubbornness, that grit. I must have let it sleep for too long. Now the feeling is still sad, but it's the kind of sadness that says, I'm grieving for myself, not I resent them. And from that regret, you take one small action, going back to your upload schedule, recording voice even when you're lazy, giving yourself a gentle deadline. All right, for the next 6 months, I'll just keep doing the work consistently. We'll talk about the rest later. If you look closely, that's admiration turning into motivation. No fanfare, no big slogans, just a quiet voice inside. Don't abandon yourself again. In the Stoic view, what other people do are just external events, things outside you. What determines who you become is how you respond to those events. Envy says, they have, I don't. I'm the loser. Admiration, once it has matured, speaks differently. They have it so clearly, it's possible now me. What do I choose to do with that information? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If every time you see someone shine, you let your mind repeat, I'm worse, I'm late, I'm behind, your life will shrink down around those 3 words. But if, with the exact same events, you practice changing the sentence in your head too, this is a reminder of who I want to become, then every success out there turns into a signal, not a sentence. The night has gotten pretty deep. If you're still here listening, I'm pretty sure there's a very beautiful part of you, a part that wants to live kindly, that wants to grow, without trampling anyone, including yourself. That part deserves to be treated more gently every time you see someone doing better. You can try whispering to yourself, like you would to a younger sibling who feels left out. Yeah, I know, seeing them pull it off makes us both happy and sad. But since we're already sad, let's at least use this sadness to take one more step, instead of lying here and hating ourselves more, okay? From that tiny place, admiration begins to take root, and envy, even if it still drops by sometimes, no longer has enough power to steer your whole life in a direction you never wanted. In the next part of tonight's journey, we'll talk about something just as important: how to stop being afraid that you're turning into a bad person, just because your heart still aches sometimes, because believing you are bad can be far more dangerous than having a bit of jealousy, while still choosing again and again to live with kindness. By this point, your chest is probably a little less tight. We've walked through the fear of I'm not enough, through all those layers of comparison and invisible pressure, and you've slowly started to see they're on their road, and you're quietly wandering along your own. So the next question is, if you keep seeing other people shine, keep admiring them, keep feeling that tiny ache inside, then how do those encounters stop draining your energy and instead become fuel for your own journey? How do you let admiration turn into motivation without slipping into envy? There's a very small difference, but it's enough to change the direction of your heart. It lies in this: do you see them as a rival or as a mirror? When you see them as a rival, every step they take forward automatically feels like a step backward for you. They gain one more achievement, and your mind immediately subtracts 1 point from yourself. There's another person who just passed me. In that way of seeing, your heart shrinks, your chest feels crowded, and everything becomes zero-sum. If they have more, then you must be less. But if you step back half a pace and very gently change the angle, not a rival, but a mirror. Not the person who makes me lose, but the person who shows me a version of the human being I could also become. In my own way, then every step they take stops threatening you and starts opening things up for you. The important thing is, when you see them as a mirror, you're not copying their result. You're learning their inner quality. You're learning their mindset, not just their outcome. You're learning how they stay consistent when no one is watching. No one knows, no one cares, how they face rejection, slowness, setbacks, without rushing to stamp "I'm useless" on themselves. How they manage to keep a softness inside, even though their life also has friction, pressure, and fatigue. If all you look at is their result, you'll easily fall into jealousy. But if you zoom into the journey, into the mindset, into the things they repeat every single day, you'll start to see, oh, these are things I can train to. Imagine a very ordinary scene. You're sitting in your small workspace, a wooden desk, a glass of water, a screen open to a channel you often watch. That person is sharing how they've been creating content for years straight. The views weren't always good. Often they weren't, but they kept going, kept uploading, kept adjusting little by little. You listen and feel your chest sting a bit, not because the story is dramatic, but because you see yourself in all the times you meant to start and then dropped it. In that moment, jealousy might step in and say, if I had been that consistent, maybe I'd be somewhere else by now. If you stop there, you'll feel exhausted. That's the kind of thought that pulls you backward, listing out every time you didn't try. But if you gently turn it into, if I start being consistent from today, what do I want my future self a year from now to see when they look back at me? The energy changes color. You move from "I'm worse than them" to "there's a quality in them that I also want to grow in myself." There's a beautiful pivot point between envy and motivation, and it sits in how you talk to yourself. Instead of "I'm worse than they are," try "There is something in them that reminds me of a part of myself I once had, or still have hidden, and I want to wake it up again." Sometimes you admire their grit because you used to be that stubborn too. You're just tired now and forgot. Sometimes you resonate with their creativity because you once had a whole sky of ideas inside you. You just folded it away for safety at this point. Admiration is no longer just looking outward with hungry eyes. It becomes looking inward with a soft question. Of all the things I find beautiful in them, which one is a seed I also want to plant again in myself? To do that, you need to face a question that's not very comfortable, but very necessary. What do I actually want to learn from them? And am I willing to pay the price for that learning? Learning mindset sounds light, but it comes with accepting that you're starting from zero again, accepting feeling awkward, accepting that no one claps for you, accepting that you sit down to work every day, even when you're not in the mood. If you only want the outcome but refuse the cost, your admiration will stay stuck. It's left standing at the door, looking in, sighing. But if you're willing to say honestly, yeah, I want to live with that kind of quality too, so okay, I'll start learning from the tiniest steps. Then, little by little, admiration starts flowing down from your eyes into your hands, into your feet, into your schedule, into the way you choose to spend your free hours. There's a very small, very late night exercise you can try tonight before you sleep. When the lights are off, when no one is talking to you anymore, you lie still, close your eyes, and bring up the face of one person you've been thinking about a lot lately. Then, in your mind, write out 3 lines. 3 things I truly admire about this person are. Don't write polite answers. Don't write what sounds nice. Write what's real. Maybe it's a very simple discipline. They sit down to work at the same time every day for an hour. Maybe it's the way they don't complain, even when things are hard. Maybe it's their softness with the people around them, even when they're tired, busy, stressed. Just 3 things, specific, clear. Then ask one more question. Out of these 3, is there one I'm willing to practice in a tiny version over the next week? You're not practicing the full version. You're not copying them. You're doing a mini version. They do 1 hour. You start with 15 minutes. They upload every day. You start by simply refusing to abandon your project halfway. They write in depth. You start by jotting down 3 honest lines each night. When you choose one small thing to begin with, admiration shifts. It stops being just a gaze from the outside and becomes a little nod. Okay, I'll try. The interesting thing is, once admiration has turned into motivation, you don't need them to look back and acknowledge you so much anymore. You don't need them to know that you learned from them. You don't need them to say, "Hey, you're doing great lately." You just need that every time you think of them, your chest no longer feels heavy, and instead, there's a quiet thank you. Thank you for walking your path so honestly, so I could see a possibility inside myself. At that point, they can stay far away. Their life can turn in directions you never follow. But what you took from them remains with you. It lives in the way you work, in the way you keep your promises to yourself, in the way you face difficulty. Marcus Aurelius once said something very calm. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If every time you see someone more skilled, you choose to think, "I'm losing. Life is unfair. I'll never get there," then no matter how beautiful your admiration was at first, it will bend into envy. But if each time that happens, you practice answering with a new sentence, "Okay, I feel something here. So what do I want to learn from them within what I can actually do without betraying who I am?" Then your thoughts start to change texture, from heavy to lighter, from self-blaming to self-questioning, from stuck to moving. There's one more small detail I want us to look straight at. Not everyone you admire is necessarily a good fit to be your source of motivation. Sometimes you admire the outcome, but the way they live, the way they treat themselves, the way they treat others, is not something you want to copy. In that case, your admiration can simply stay at, "Okay, I respect their effort, but the life I want will be different." This is important. It keeps your motivation from sliding into blind imitation. You don't need to turn anyone into a flawless idol. You just need to be honest in them. There are a few pieces I want to learn. The rest, I'll choose according to my own values. That, too, is a form of maturity. Knowing how to take, knowing how to leave, not swallowing the whole cake just because you like the frosting on top. Tonight, if there's a face that keeps coming back in your mind, someone you both like and fear and feel small around, maybe you can try making peace with that image in a different way, not by forcing yourself. Come on, stop being jealous, but by sitting up a little on the inside, even if your body is still lying in bed and whispering, "Okay, you're good. I'm genuinely happy for you. And there's a part of you I also want to grow in me. I don't need to become you, but I'm not going to let this admiration die young inside a pool of insecurity anymore." Then you choose one tiny thing, very ordinary, absolutely not Instagram worthy, to do differently tomorrow, just a little. That act is how you answer admiration with action, not just with a sigh. And as those small actions pile up day after day, you'll find yourself slowly walking away from envy without even noticing when it's happened, not because you've become more noble, but because you're busy actually living your own life more present, more fully. And the people you once both admired and feared quietly turn into yellow streetlights along your night road, each shining in their own way, each different, but all helping the road be a little less dark. The rest is just you taking care that your own small light doesn't go out just because someone else's is burning brighter on another part of the street. There comes a point, after you've walked through enough layers of fear, comparison, and self-blame, when your heart starts asking a different question. If all these feelings are normal, if I'm allowed to admire other people, allowed to feel that little sting, allowed to learn, then in the end, what kind of person do I need to become to live peacefully in the middle of all of this? That's when you step into another territory. The territory of emotional maturity. Emotional maturity does not mean you stop feeling jealous, you stop feeling sad, or you never feel a pang when someone else succeeds. Maturity is when those feelings show up, they no longer drag you far away from who you really are. You still hear about someone's success, you still feel that pinch, but you no longer have to put on a show for everyone that I'm totally fine, not bothered at all, or punish yourself all night for that tiny ache. You're allowed to acknowledge it, hold it, and then keep walking. No freezing, no falling apart. There are a few small skills that look simple, but if you hold on to them long enough, they will completely change the quality of the nights you lie down to sleep. The first skill: self-soothing in the face of someone else's success. Soothing doesn't mean being indifferent. It's not, I don't care what anyone does. Soothing means you allow your heart to tremble, but you don't let it shatter. You hear that a friend has just hit monetization in the first 10 minutes. Everything might feel chaotic, a mix of happiness, bruised pride, regret, panic in the past. That feeling could pull you around for a whole day. You'd lose focus, lose your mood, lose your trust in yourself. Now, you practice one very small thing. Pause, breathe in slowly, breathe out slowly, then tell yourself in a voice that doesn't scold, yeah, this hurts a little. It's okay. Let me give this feeling a bit of space, and then I'll go back to my own work. The first few times, maybe that's all you can manage, but just not adding extra blame on top of the pain already means you're soothing yourself. You're not turning a wave into a storm. You recognize it as a wave and let it wash through. The second skill: setting boundaries with harmful types of comparison. Not every comparison is bad. Some comparisons help you see how you've grown, but there are certain patterns of comparison you already know will tire you out, and you still jump into them anyway. For example, checking every day who is ahead of me, comparing yourself to people with completely different lives, comparing yourself to a timeline built by society, comparing yourself to some perfect imaginary version in your head. Emotional maturity is when you start knowing how to cut those comparisons off, not once and for all, but every time you notice, oh, I'm doing that thing again, huh? You gently pull yourself out. Okay, this is far enough. That's enough now. I don't need to compare like this anymore. Like scrolling on your phone when you see yourself getting sucked in. You tap out, not because you're trying to be morally superior, but because you're tired and you want to save your energy for something else. The third skill: developing something beautiful the Stoics often talk about: quiet confidence. Quiet confidence is not walking around trying to prove how good you are, listing to the world how hard you're trying. It's the kind of confidence of someone who knows clearly where they're going, what they're learning, what they're working hard for, and what no longer needs to be proven to anyone. With quiet confidence, you can still admire other people, but you no longer feel threatened every time they move forward. They add one more achievement, and your self-worth doesn't automatically drop 10 points. You don't have to shout, "Hey, I'm good too. Look at me." You simply step slightly inward, look back at your own road, and ask, "Today, did I live even a little bit closer to the person I want to become?" If the answer is yes, even just a little, your heart will quietly soften and expand. No applause needed, no validation required. There's a phrase often mentioned in meditation and in Stoicism: observing without absorbing, seeing without swallowing everything whole. Imagine yourself as a person sitting by a window, looking out at the street. You see people driving fast, people arguing, people laughing, people showing off new things, people crying, people falling in love, people succeeding, people failing. You see all of it, but you don't have to carry all of those stories into your room. You don't have to, every time someone succeeds, write a verdict against yourself. You just observe. Oh, that's how they're moving. If something hits you, you note it. This stung a bit. Then you ask, is there a small lesson I can take from this for my journey? If yes, you take note. If not, you let it pass by. Observe, without turning everything into your personal drama. That's a very grown kind of peace. Seneca has a sentence that sounds a bit philosophical, but fits tonight's story perfectly. The greatest wealth is a poverty of desires. The greatest wealth is when you're no longer pulled off your center by hundreds of wants, comparisons, and rivalries the world throws at you. Not that you want nothing, but that you know what your main wants are, and you know how to be enough with the rest. It's the same with admiring others. If you're not clear on what you want, you'll be dragged everywhere. Whoever has something, you want that exact thing too. You want money like this person, fame like that person, a lifestyle like someone else again. The result is, you live exhausted, always feeling less. But if you've sat with yourself and honestly said, what do I truly want? The thing that would keep me from regretting my life when I'm old. Maybe it's being able to work in something you love, even if you're not the richest. Maybe it's having a healthy body, being able to sleep peacefully at night. Maybe it's being able to say what you really think in a slow voice that reaches a few people who genuinely need it. When your desires narrow down to their core, the things outside that core stop shaking you as much. Other people may have more, but if it's not inside your core, you'll feel, I'm happy for them, but I'm not changing my path. That's a very quiet kind of wealth. So, stepping into the territory of emotional maturity is not about controlling your feelings perfectly. It's about knowing where you are, knowing where you want to go, and not letting every wave from outside slam you in every direction. You can still admire others. You can still learn from them. You can still have nights where it hurts. But in the middle of all that, you don't forget one very small but important thing. I have my path too. I don't have to disappear just so I can clap for everyone else forever. Tonight, before we drift into the final minutes of this journey, you can try a very gentle exercise, done only in your mind. Imagine a more mature version of yourself standing in front of you. Not perfect, not rich, not famous, just a little more grown than you are now. Someone who knows how to hold themselves when they're sad, who knows how to be happy for others without forgetting themselves, Who knows how to say that's enough to comparisons that drain them, who quietly keeps doing their work. Even when no one is watching, look at that version of you and ask, if you were me, what would you think? What would you do every time you see someone else succeed? Maybe a few small lines will appear in your mind. Yeah, I'm happy for them, and I'm sad for myself too. That's it. Tomorrow, I'll go back to my work. Or, the way they walk their path moves me. I'll take one piece of that into my tomorrow. Even just 15 minutes is enough. Those tiny answers are the footsteps of emotional maturity, not loud, not glamorous, but very real. And when you live in that space long enough, something natural begins to happen. You no longer need to force yourself not to be jealous. You're no longer haunted by the question, am I a bad person? You become someone who can stand in a world full of comparison, watch other lights shining, smile, and still keep a small, quiet patch of peace in your chest, where you know clearly, I am growing in my own way. I'm not perfect, but I no longer lose myself every time I admire someone. In the final part of tonight, we'll slowly set things down, gather everything that has touched you, and send you off into a sleep that feels a little lighter. Your path, their path, and the quiet peace that can exist between those two roads by now. Your heart is probably a little lighter than it was at the beginning. You've been able to see. You get jealous because you're afraid of not being enough. You feel sad because you once abandoned a dream. You feel that sting because of timelines, comparisons, and all those invisible other people's kids in your head, and you genuinely don't want to become a bad person. All of that sounds messy at first, but it's actually guiding you toward a very clear rhythm. The rhythm of emotional maturity, not the kind of maturity that says, from tomorrow on, I'll never be jealous again, but from tomorrow on, every time my heart aches, I know where I am, and I choose how to keep walking. If you notice, most of what we've been taught about growing up sounds like, just ignore it, stop thinking about it, just be happy for them, just beat them, then talk. Think more positively. But emotional maturity is not about wiping all feelings away. It's more like learning to drive. Feelings are the road. The rain, the potholes, the curves. You can't demand the road be perfectly smooth. You just learn to drive in a way that doesn't crash into walls, doesn't run yourself over, and doesn't run over other people. So what does admiring without losing yourself look like in everyday life? It's not flashy. It's small, very small, knowing how to hold yourself first, then turning to the world you hear that a friend succeeded at something. You can still text them, I'm genuinely happy for you. But right after that, emotional maturity is knowing how to turn back to yourself instead of leaving yourself standing outside the door. You lie down on your bed, footsteps in the house fade away, the lights are off, and it's just you and the ceiling dot in the past. Maybe you would start to pick yourself apart, compare, insult yourself, or scroll through a flood of content just to escape the feeling. Now, you try one extremely simple thing. Place your hand on your chest, take a long breath, and quietly say in your mind, yeah, I'm a little sad. That's okay. I'm still someone who can be happy for them. And I'm also someone who's allowed to be sad for myself. Just that. 2 or 3 lines. No analysis. No scolding. That's you stabilizing yourself. Instead of letting your entire emotional world be controlled by someone else's good news. No one sees it. No one knows, but that's the kind of thing only a grown heart can do. Knowing when to pull yourself out of the comparison spiral. You can't stop your brain from comparing, but you can recognize when it's replaying an old spiral. For example, You watch a video. After watching, you don't feel moved or inspired. You just feel, why do they get to be like that, and I'm still? That sentence doesn't lead you to action. It just leads you to a sigh. Nice. The toxic comparison spiral has started. Emotional maturity is not gritting your teeth and forcing yourself to keep watching. And it's not scolding yourself. See, you're comparing again. It's knowing how to look it in the face. I'm getting sucked in. That's enough. I'm out. You close it. Not because you hate them, but because you want to protect your mind from a comparison you already know goes nowhere. Like walking down the street. Seeing a restaurant your body doesn't handle well, you don't go inside. Not because the restaurant is bad, but because your system can't digest it. There are pieces of content, certain people, certain types of success that will always trigger a very exhausting comparison in you. You're allowed to limit your contact with them, at least during seasons when you're fragile. That's not running away. That's knowing your capacity. Growing a quiet confidence. Quiet confidence is not constantly saying, I believe in myself. It's much smaller than that. It lives in moments like your views are low, but you still sit down to make the next video. No one checks in on you, but you still do your work with care. No one acknowledges you, but you still choose what you feel is right. You do those things not because you're sure you'll succeed, but because you don't want to betray the person you're trying to become. There is a loud kind of confidence. You have to brag, prove, argue. Quiet confidence is the opposite. It's like a small flame on the stove at night. It doesn't flare up, but it doesn't go out. And the strange thing is, the more you grow quiet confidence, the less startled you are when you see someone else moving fast. You look at them, you still feel something, but inside you already have a clear line. I'm walking too. My pace is just different. Practicing observing without absorbing. Imagine your mind as a room. Social media, messages, other people's lives, they're like visitors passing through. One person walks in to show off a win. Another is sad. Someone else is fighting. Another shows off money, love, lifestyle. You have the right to open the door, but you also have the right not to let all of them stay overnight in your head. Observing without absorbing means you watch, you listen, you acknowledge. They're happy. They're in pain. They're rising. Then you quietly ask, does this have anything to do with my journey? If yes, you take a small lesson or a small spark of inspiration and close the door. If not, you let it pass, like a car driving by your window without jumping on the back. Seneca says, the greatest wealth is a poverty of desires. You are rich when your heart is not crammed full of hundreds of cravings, rivalries, and comparisons other people accidentally or intentionally throw into you. See without swallowing, touch without carrying everything, empathize without needing to drag it all inside. That's how you keep enough space in your inner room for you to live there, gathering everything into a few everyday reminders. Maturity doesn't live in long philosophical quotes. It lives in a few sentences you can actually use every day if you'd like. Tonight, we can gather this whole journey into a few very short lines. Like little mental notes, you can tweak them, change them to fit you, or use them as a small mantra before sleep. For example, I'm allowed to admire others without turning myself into the loser of the story. I'm allowed to be happy for them and sad for myself in the same moment. I get jealous the most in the places I deeply long for. That's not proof I'm nasty. That's a map. They are on their path. I am on mine. Tonight, I don't have to solve everything. I just have to stop lying to myself. You don't have to memorize them all. Just choose one line that really hits you and repeat it in your mind a few times before sleep. Not to brainwash yourself, but to remind your heart, hey, I do have a way forward. I'm not just standing here taking hits, living your path, their path, and the peace in between in the end. Admiring without losing yourself means being able to live with 3 layers at once: their path, seeing clearly their effort, luck, choices, and the price they've paid, respecting them, being happy for them, and accepting that some things will always belong to their journey. Your path, being honest about what you want, about where you're standing, about the parts you've skipped or abandoned, and about the small steps you can still take, the peaceful space in between, where you're not trying to drag them over to your side, and you're not erasing yourself just to be pleasing, where you can say, I'm happy for you, and I'm not abandoning myself. That quiet space doesn't come from anyone else. It doesn't come with likes, comments, or praise. It's built from every moment you face your jealousy raw, human, and refuse to let it steer you away from the person you want to become. If you're lying down right now, ears still listening while your eyes grow heavy, you probably have a few faces drifting through your mind: old friends, creators you follow, people in the same field, people your age, some you love, some you feel intimidated by, some you both admire and feel exhausted around. It's okay. You don't have to fix every relationship with them in one night. You just need, for the first time maybe, to look back at yourself with a different gaze, less judgment, fewer good, bad labels, and a little more gentleness. Tonight, before you fall fully asleep, you might try saying something like this to yourself: tomorrow, if I see someone who's better than me at something, I'm not going to insult myself again. I'll just ask, what is this reminding me of in my own journey? That's it. No forcing, no grand promises. Questions like that, repeated day after day, are the small bricks that build the emotional maturity you're looking for. And slowly, you'll realize you can admire other people without losing yourself. You can let their light fall across the road you're walking without dimming the light inside your own chest. From there, all the paths, theirs, yours, can exist together inside a very quiet, very slow, just enough kind of peace so that you can close your eyes and sleep a little easier. There's one thing that's very easy to forget. All this time tonight, we've talked a lot about other people, about their success, their light, their path, but in truth, this session was never really about them. It has always been about you. About that very small sensation in your chest every time someone levels up out there in the world, and your heart has to quietly teach itself how not to break. If you look back over the whole journey tonight, we've walked through quite a few stages, from the place where you could only say, I must be a terrible, jealous person, to the place where you dared to admit, no, I'm just afraid I'm not enough. From seeing envy as a stain on your character to noticing that, underneath it, there's a very beautiful little spark of admiration that's just been covered in dust. From letting comparison drag you down, to pausing and asking, what exactly am I comparing here? And what, if anything, can I actually learn from this person? From fearing, what if I become a bad person, to realizing that your character is shaped by your choices, not by one single passing emotion. And maybe most importantly, somewhere in these last minutes, you've been able to see a little more clearly your own path. If we shrink everything down now into just a few gentle movements, then tonight's journey really revolves around 3 things. First, learning to see jealousy as a signal, not a sentence. That sharp little ache when you see someone touch something you also wanted does not automatically turn you into a bad person. It might simply be saying, there's something here you still deeply long for. You're just unsure what to do with it yet. Second, using comparison as a tool, not a weapon. You'll still compare. That's human, but maybe just a bit more often. You can compare less between someone else's finished result and your own still messy, half-built effort. Compare less between society's timeline and the very particular structure of your own life. Compare less between yourself and those perfect imaginary versions of you that may never have existed in the first place, and instead shift from why not me towards what can I learn from them, and who do I actually want to become after seeing this. Third, allowing admiration to become a quiet source of fuel. Instead of a wound that keeps reopening, seeing other people as mirrors, not as enemies, studying their mindset, instead of trying to copy their outcome, practicing saying, there is something in them that reminds me of something beautiful in me. I'll take responsibility for that part in my own way. Marcus Aurelius left us a line that feels like a gentle reminder. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Your happiness does not live only in how fast you move, how much money you make, or how many people approve of you. It lives, largely, in the quality of the thoughts you choose to feed, day after day. If every time you see someone more skilled than you, you choose to think, I've lost, life is unfair, I must be worthless, then, sooner or later, your heart will start to believe that story. But if, even while it still hurts, you practice thinking, yes, I'm sad, I'm also genuinely admiring them, and I'm going to use this sting to move a little closer to the person I want to become, then slowly, but surely, your inner world will start to shift color into the color of someone who can live with their feelings without being swallowed by them. So let's circle back to the question that's been quietly humming underneath this whole night. How can I admire other people without letting the fear of jealousy ruin me? Maybe the answer is not a formula, but a feeling. The feeling that you no longer have to hide the part of you that feels that little pinch. You no longer have to perform, I'm 100% happy, not the slightest bit sad. And you also no longer let that sadness turn into arrows you shoot in every direction. You simply are honest with it, and then you use it like a compass. Each time your heart tightens, you can ask, what is this pointing to that I need to be more honest about in my own journey? It could be an old dream, a promise you left unfinished, a habit you once wanted to change. If you're willing to look, jealousy becomes less of a destroyer and more of a messenger. And what about this fear of losing yourself? The truth is, you don't lose yourself in the moment your heart aches. You lose yourself in the moment you let that ache push you away from the values you actually respect. When you start saying things you know are small and mean. When you deliberately drag someone down just so you feel less behind. When you abandon the work you need to do just to sit there and compare and exhaust yourself more in those moments. It's not that jealousy wins, it's that you decide, just for a moment, to let go of the better part of you. But each time you don't let go, each time you stop halfway and say, no, I don't want to act like that, you are proving something you've probably never given yourself credit for. You are not as easy to turn into a bad person as you fear. There are parts of you doing a very good job of keeping you from sliding too far. Barely anyone praises those parts. So, tonight, take this as me sitting here for a while, just to say on your behalf, I see them, I see you. Now, as the night has grown deeper, things outside your window are probably quieter than when you first pressed play. Maybe you're lying on your side, one arm tucked under your pillow, the other resting across your stomach, the lights are off, and there's just a thin line of glow coming through a curtain, or from a screen turned down low. I want to invite you to try one last tiny thing before you let sleep take over. Small, very small. Think about yourself, but a few years from now. Not the perfect you, not the rich and famous you, not some ultra-accomplished version, just a version who is a little calmer, a little more quietly confident, a little clearer about their own path than you are right now. That future you sits down next to your present self in this dim little room. They don't give a lecture, they just place a hand on your shoulder and say something very ordinary. It's okay. We still have a road to walk. They have their path, we have ours. We don't have to beat anyone. We just have to stop abandoning ourselves. If that sentence makes your eyes sting a bit, or makes your chest soften, then your heart has probably understood from here on. I can't promise you'll never feel jealous again. No one can promise that. But I do believe that each time that feeling returns, you'll blame yourself a little less, be a little gentler with yourself, and remember to ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me about my own path? And that alone is enough to keep you from losing yourself. This is Lucid Dream, Sleep and Science Stories. If you're still awake, it might be time to let your mind rest. All those faces you've been thinking about, all those successes that made your heart pinch, all the numbers and milestones. For now, let them be. They don't all need to be solved in one night. You don't have to make any big decisions right now. Tonight, your only job is to slow your breathing, gently hand your body back to the bed, give your eyes back to the soft darkness, and return your heart to a small, quiet place of peace that it has always deserved. Before you close your eyes, if you'd like, you can whisper one last line. Your path, their path, and I choose peace in between. Then you don't have to think anymore. Leave the rest for tomorrow. I wish you a peaceful night. And if you dream, I hope they're light dreams where you meet yourself again, not as someone who lost, but as someone learning to walk slowly, walk honestly, and never again leave their own heart behind on any path they choose to take.